Hello again, BookTube. This is my third attempt at trying to film this video, and apologies for the poor video quality. Every time I try to film a video on my phone, apparently I don't have enough storage space, so I cannot film anything more than 2 minutes on there, so that's why I have this filming on this laptop. The camera isn't as good. But anyway, I wanted to talk about a novella that I just finished today. It is The Death of Ivan Ilyich by Leo Tolstoy. This is a vintage classics trade paperback. There is our venerable author on the front cover, going his sixth week without bathing. And this particular edition was translated by Richard Pevere and Larissa Volokonsky. When it comes to Tolstoy translations, the very little that I have read of Tolstoy, at least in translation, I don't speak Russian, I don't read Russian, so I have to take my best guess, as I'm sure a lot of you do. And Pevere and Volokonsky, I just get along with the best. They're reading his stories and reading Tolstoy's novels just go by. They're just so smooth, the reading experience. It's like water. And it's so clear, and so that's I just prefer their translations over most. The War and Peace novel that I read was the Anthony Briggs translation, but I did eventually get a copy of the Pevere and Volokonsky translation of War and Peace, and I really like it a lot. But anyway, so this novella came out in 1886, and this was after a period of time, or in the middle of a period of time, where Tolstoy was deep into what I would call his God-bothering phase. After the publication of Anna Karenina, he really started to have this sort of spiritual crisis, sort of a mental breakdown, and he was thinking that he really did not live up to his own expectations, and he really worried that he was not living a good life, and so he started to throw himself into the arms of Christianity, and he converted to a particular type of Christianity that I think philosophers today call Christian anarchism, which is basically a belief that there should be no human governments on earth, that the only government should be the kingdom of God, and that the only authority figure should be God, and we should try to live the way that Jesus did, live the way that God would want us to, a life of simplicity and a life of poverty, and something that Tolstoy did not live by himself. So, a little hypocritical there, but this novella came out 1886, around that time, and he keeps his preachiness down to a minimum, at least in this. He always had a preachy side of all of his writing, but especially infamously in books like War and Peace, and if you haven't read War and Peace, once you get to those chapters, you know when you'll get there. You can just skip them. They don't add anything to the story. It's just him bloviating about what he wants to, what he thinks about life and war and death. But most of of his preachiness around those earlier times were more secular, and then this was around the phase when he started to be more of like I said, of a God-bothering type of preachiness. And I do know that since I'm talking about Tolstoy, that I am treading into dangerous waters of Brock at the Active Mind, and he is the resident Russian literature guru, and after this book discussion, hopefully he doesn't send the Imperial Guard after me. But I have really mixed feelings about this novella, at least compared to Tolstoy's other works. So something that I think bothered me the most, or something that just did not hit for me the way that this hits for other people, is that I don't know what you would even call it. like I think that I think that this did not have the big emotional or spiritual impact on me as this does for so many people, and as it is claimed to be. So, for example, this quote on the back of this particular edition, it says that Tolstoy's novella is an intense and moving examination of death and the possibilities of redemption. No, it's not. And at the end it says, The Death of Ivan Ilyich is a masterpiece of psychological realism and philosophical profundity. Not for me, it isn't. And so, uh, yeah, and I do know that I'm in the minority opinion of this, and I'm okay with that. I'm I'm sure it's something with me. I don't think it is. It is probably not Tolstoy's fault. It's probably just something with me. And something else that I think plays into why this did not affect me as much as it does other people, or maybe as much as it did to people at the time this came out, is that the moral precepts that were preached in this is something that at least I've been taught my whole life, as far as don't live your life the way that other people want you to live the way you want to live, as long as it doesn't hurt anybody. Live as authentically as you can, and that is what is preached in this. And so it didn't. Whenever I was reading this and going through all the moral parts of it, I was thinking, well, yeah, this is obvious. Like what? So that probably is why it did not affect me as much. Uh, and when I read this, so I actually read this twice before I filmed this. The first time I read it, it was deep into deep into the night, early morning, a couple days ago, and I really wasn't sure. Like, I didn't get the sort of goosebumps that everybody else gets when they read this, and so I thought, well, is there something I'm missing, or did I skip over something? And so I thought, okay, well, I better reread this, and which I can do that. This thing is only about 50 pages, and so that's pretty easy. So, and I reread it last night, and I did pick up on more details. I picked up on more things that I didn't catch the first time around, but the execution still felt flat to me. And one of the big things is that Ivan Ilyich himself was just he was a schmuck. He was a jerk. He was terrible to his wife and his daughter. He was indifferent to his son, and I was happy that he died at the end of it. So this story, it starts out at the story starts at the end, where his Ivan Ilyich's work colleagues, they go to his funeral and they talk to his wife and they meet his daughter, and then in the next chapter, until the rest of the story, it is tells you about Ivan Ilyich's whole life. And whenever I was reading about Ivan Ilyich's marriage to his wife, it was sort of a typical marriage, that I'm sure a lot of people today still get into. People marry each other for the wrong reasons. They probably should not. They're not mature enough to be married, but they get married because, well, it seems nice in the short term, and it's something that respectable people do. And they hated each other. Ivan Ilyich was just, he didn't want any conflict at all in his marriage or in his life in general. And every time he ran into conflict with his wife, instead of trying to resolve that, he would disappear and throw himself either into his work or get into playing cards with his friends. And that resentment only grew. And there's this particular part in the novella I wanted to read, because I think it's it does a pretty good job of describing what some marriages are like, and at least what this marriage of Ivan Ilyich was. This says so. This is after several years into their marriage, after they have had children. This says most of the subjects of conversation between husband and wife, especially the children's education, led to problems that were reminiscent of quarrels, and quarrels were ready to flare up at any moment. There remained only rare periods of amorousness that came over the spouses, but they did not last long. These were islands that they would land on temporarily, but then they would put out again to the sea of concealed enmity that expressed itself in estrangement from each other. So, right there, you can tell that these two hate each other, and so yeah, it just and the way that the wife is described in the book is that she probably did have some unrealistic expectations for Ivan Ilyich, but he certainly did not do anything to help the situation. And so Tolstoy also, you could tell he clearly has contempt for Ivan Ilyich, for this character that he created. It's hard to have sympathy, at least for me, it was really hard to have sympathy for Ivan Ilyich at all, especially when he started to get sick and as he was dying. Uh, and Richard Pavir, he points out in his introduction to the story that Tolstoy wrote this novella based on a person he actually met who was he was a civil servant. His name was Ivan Ilyich. He met this Ivan Ilyich only once, but immediately he found this person to be really unusual, and so that was sort of the nugget that started this whole story. And the whole time I was reading this, I was thinking to myself, did Tolstoy base this person off of himself or off of somebody he knew well? Because he clearly does not like this person at all. So was he just venting? Probably just throwing stuff against the wall to see what sticks, as far as my analysis goes. But and like I said, this novella, it can be, for as short as it is, it still gets a little bit preachy, and I don't like my books to be preachy unless they make the story interesting. And so, like I said, War and Peace and Anna Karenina are famously preachy, especially War and Peace. But luckily, those stories are good enough to where you can take it as you go. And another example, Dostoevsky. Really, most of the Russian writers, except for Anton Chekhov, part of the reason why I love Chekhov so much is that he doesn't moralize at all. But like Dostoevsky, I love Crime and Punishment and the Brothers Karamazov, but my God, those books are preachy. And the big moral reveal at the end that Ivan Ilyich goes through, this big transformation, it fell flat for me. It seemed kind of lazy on Tolstoy's part. When I read it, it seemed like Tolstoy either lost interest in it, or he just got up from his writing table and left the room. And I mean, the moral crisis that Ivan Ilyich has, I have notes here that remind me what I want to talk about, so that's why I keep looking over here. But the moral crisis that Ivan Ilyich has as he is dying is something that I'm sure is very typical of people, where if they get really sick and as they are dying, they start to think about important things like this. And as Ivan Ilyich is dying, once he realizes that he is going to die, he gives himself over to some, well, navel gazing, which is never healthy. But once you realize that you're dying and there's no coming back, I guess you are entitled to some amount of that. But Ivan Ilyich, at first, he keeps trying to figure out, well, why me? Why am I dying? What did I do to deserve this? I did all the right things. I got married. I had children. I lived the way that respectable people lived. I had a house. I did and said all the right things. I wore all the right clothes. But he slowly wonders, like, well, did I live the way that I wanted to, or did I just waste it and live the way that other people wanted me to? And he he keeps wrestling with his thoughts about that, and slowly he realizes that, oh crap, I wasted my life. It's still a selfish realization. He still never admits that, oh, I was terrible. I was terrible to the people around me. I was terrible to my wife. I was terrible to my daughter, or all of my children. It's he still never thinks about that, but he realizes there's a famous well, there's a scene that stuck with me in this where uh, where he is slowly dying. He's laying on his couch, his face to the cushion, facing away from the world, and he starts to wonder, well, what were some of my happiest memories in my life? And none of them were with him as an adult. They were with him as a child, and all of his happiest memories were in childhood because that was, at least the way that I took it, is that he was living the way that he was living authentically then. He wasn't living the way that other people wanted him to. He was living the way he wanted. And so, and once he realizes that he completely wasted his entire life, he like he starts spiraling downward mentally, other than just physically. And then he just starts howling, and he starts just agonizing all the way up until the time he dies. And those last few pages of this they are kind of disturbing, because it makes you think that, when we come into this world, we come into this world screaming, terrified, uh, soiling ourselves, not knowing how anything works. And then, unless you are really lucky at the end of your life, you go out the same way. And so, I guess it sort of puts that idea into perspective. And uh, yeah, so there, this whole story was it is filled with a bunch of really interesting ideas, but the execution of it just fell flat for me. And so, yeah, I don't know. Perhaps if I read it again, I will catch things, but I'm pretty sure I understood what Tolstoy was trying to get at with this. This did not have nearly the impact on me as, say, War and Peace or Anna Karenina, but still interesting. Even though I didn't like it as much, I haven't stopped thinking about it. So, uh, if you have read this, then tell me what you think. Tell me if there's anything that I might be missing. Tell me what you thought overall about it. And so, uh, yeah, I think that's everything that I wanted to talk about. It is still very much worth reading, and it will take you no time at all. Like I said, it's a tiny little thing. And so, uh, yeah, tell me what you think about it. And I'm going to start reading another big time Russian novel after this. I'm starting on, for March of the Mammoths, I'm starting on Quiet Flows the Dawn by Mikhail Sholokhov. And so I will do another attempt at discussing a big epic Russian classic once that time comes. So, uh, yeah, tell me what you think about it, and I will see you next time.